Okay, good evening, everyone. Thanks so much for being here tonight. My name is Jennifer Brinkman. I'm the Chief of Staff in Mayor Leary and Gaylor Baird's office, and we're really excited to have you here for the second night of a public forum to meet our finalist candidates to be the next police chief for the Lincoln Police Department. This is part of our public engagement process as we have gone through the search process for the position. I know a lot of you were here last night. I see a lot of familiar faces, but just for those of you who weren't here, just a reminder that as part of that public engagement process, we started back in February with focus groups and community surveys where we asked people what the qualities and skills that they thought would be important for us to look for in the next Lincoln police chief. And these efforts also included focus groups and meetings with our LPD sworn officers, command staff, and other civilian staff. And the results of that process were put into a report which is now on the city's website, which you can access. And it detailed the qualities, skills, and experience that our community told us they wanted to see in the next police chief. We also took that information and created a position description and a posting that we circulated nationwide. We had 31 candidates that applied for the position, and then we had a community search process. I see Phil Tegler here, who was part of our interview panel. Thank you, Phil, for being here. And they interviewed 8 different candidates and then recommended, and we now have 4 finalists for the position that are visiting Lincoln this week. We announced those finalists on June 3rd, and we have run them through their paces each day. They've come to Lincoln, started with a community tour to get to know the city, have met with the mayor, with some city council folks, and then had small group meetings, and then spent a couple hours at the department itself to meet officers and command staff and to get a virtual tour of the facilities and community. So with that, I'm really proud to introduce Teresa Ewins, who is currently a commander with the San Francisco Police Department. We do have a comment card at the back of the room that includes a biography for Teresa, and you can also find that online on our website. So just as a reminder, this is the same program from last night. As we prepared for tonight's forum, we asked each of the candidates to prepare a presentation to give a personal introduction, talk about their crime prevention philosophy, talk about recruitment and retention of police officers, and then to provide a little bit of comment on the current state of policing in America and how that would influence their role as the next chief of police. So with that, it's my pleasure to turn the microphone over to Teresa Ewins. Please welcome her.
I threw a wrench and everything. I said I don't like podiums because when I get nervous, I have to walk around. So if I do a little dance, don't hold it against me. Hi, everybody. I'm really happy to be here. Today has been a lot of work, let me just tell you. And I know it's been stressful for the PD and the mayor's office, but I'm not used to this. COVID, I haven't been going to any meetings. I've been on Zoom looking in a screen, right? So it's been quite a pace, and today I was surprised. So a little bit about me. I born and raised in California, born actually in Santa Monica, California. We moved up Northern California when I was 10. There, I, like a lot of the kids, my first introduction to police was someone coming to my school and introducing themselves and telling us what he did for a living. And I'm like, that's me right there. That's what I want to do. Because one of the things that was talked about was helping people. And so that is something that I've always wanted to do. So I moved up to Northern California, and then I'm a soccer player. I just have to put that out to you. I already told the mayor we need a professional women's team here. I don't think she bought it quickly, but I'll work on that. But soccer was a very big deal for me. I have a learning disability, and that was really difficult in the 80s and trying to get an education. And so that affected me a lot, and soccer was really a huge part of my life. And it really got me through a lot of hard times, and I think a lot of people can understand that. that it's difficult to have these roadblocks, in your life. And so it gave me a better understanding about what I was doing in my life and actually the career that I wanted. So fast forward, I took a little roundabout to get in the police department. I came in at 30 years old, and I did that because there was a hiring freeze at the time. Everyone's like, well, what did you do? Why didn't you go in before? It was because there was a hiring freeze, and also I thought I was going to be a soccer player, and that didn't work out. So there was no professional soccer at the time. And so, I entered at 30, and I was very happy that I entered at 30, because 30 years old gave me a perspective that other people did not have at 21, even, early 20s. And so I came in and I loved it. It was the best job. It still is the best job in the world. And 26 years later, I am here with you. And I've had a lot of experience in many different areas, from operations to our Homeland Security unit, which is responsible for preparation, getting equipment, training, things like that. But also investigations. I spent the majority of my time on the street, though, and when I say that, that means that we have 10 district stations. So as I rose through the ranks, I really purposely wanted to remain on the street, because that's where my comfort level was. That's what I like to do. And so with doing that, it really, again, allowed me to get perspective on what's happening in law enforcement, what's happening in our communities. As I rose through the ranks, became a lieutenant. I have to go through this fast. I don't have 2 minutes, so I always take longer. But sorry. But as a lieutenant, I still was on the street. But then I started doing investigations. So Special Investigations Division, District Station, and then moving on to the best job in the world, as I call it, at our Homeland Security, or Special Operations Bureau, in charge of horses and dirt bikes. Anyone? Anyone? Would you choose that? Yes, I did. Great job. So then, fast forward again to becoming a captain of police. I started off in investigations, Special Victims Unit. That was eye-opening. It was astonishing how much crime that occurs, domestic violence, sexual assault, crimes against children. Those are things that we have to invest in and be very serious about solving. So from there, I went on to going back to the Special Operations Bureau, being in charge of our tactical company, and I learned so much there. So San Francisco has a lot of protests. I'm sure you've heard of them, or not. It's one of those things I say grow up in the police department. I grew up managing protests, and it was completely normal. And we definitely got it right, I'll be honest with you. It is something that I'm very passionate about when it comes to our processes. And so I learned a lot there from the men and women in that unit. So then I went on to Tenderloin Station. Some of you may have heard of it, may have seen videos from Tenderloin Station. It is the best, one of the best districts in the entire city. So we have 10 district stations. Tenderloin was again eye-opening because it had a lot of the disenfranchised that lived there. The most children in one district. It was the smallest district of all 10 district stations. That's where all the recovery is. That's where all the resources were for people that mental health, addiction, a lot of immigrants live there. And so there was a lot of challenges there, and I learned a lot from that. And, from those lessons, I definitely bring that to you today. I mean, it is about access, it's about equity, it's about being able to reach the young people that are going down the wrong path and diverting them to a different path, being that support for them and getting them on the right track. And honestly, it's giving our officers the equipment, the knowledge, and the resources to provide that to the community. So now I'm a commander in the police department. And I am in charge of 5 district stations out of the 10, and they're all downtown. You may know the areas that I'm responsible for is Fisherman's Wharf, Giant Stadium, AT&T Park. You may have heard the Warriors, Steph Curry, Oracle Park, downtown, financial district. So it's a very, very busy area. And again, lots of protests. We've had Super Bowl, we've had all kinds of parades, but also large protests. So I come with a lot of experience. So I wanted to skip, not go in order here, because I wanted to really talk about the current state of policing. There's a broad brush that's been painted across law enforcement, and it hasn't necessarily been fair to everyone. I think I can't walk around. Part of the problem is we have great officers, and they deserve the opportunity to do their job. They've been beaten up, and so we need to support them, and we need to actually invest in them, in what they're doing day to day. So in really looking at the state of policing, we have to always learn. We learn from our mistakes, we learn from our successes, and that's how we move forward. Always willing to change, always willing to look forward and do better. And that only happens when we work with the community. But everyone needs to be heard. Everyone needs to come to the table and have that conversation. Because the most frustrating thing for me in my career is when people will be very upset, but they're not willing to come to the table with solutions to help us figure it out. And that's the most important thing. So investment in officers and what we do day to day, and investment in the community, and you have a part in building this department moving forward. So crime prevention philosophy and/or effective strategy. There are so many different strategies in regards to reducing crime. Right now we have a very large spike in shootings across the country. This is extremely concerning considering all the unrest and COVID and everything else that's been happening. And we have to stop that. We also have to understand it. Right now, what I heard today, Lincoln had a great system in place. They look at the data, they're always looking at crime trends, they're always addressing it and coming up with a plan. That's ideal. That's what I actually was going to come here and talk about, was we need data. We need to understand the data. But also to solve the problem with crime trends is actually working with the young, the youth in the city. So they have opportunities to actually thrive and not go down that path. That means in the schools. That even means when there's contact by our officers in which they've made bad decisions, that they can actually recover from that bad decision. We've seen studies and academics and everyone coming forward and saying, the interaction with law enforcement is negative. Yes, it is. Trauma is real. I've seen it. It's horrible for everyone. My time in the Tenderloin taught me that trauma, even though you think the youth are not seeing it, they're seeing it. And there's some things that I could tell you that I won't even say right now. That we saw, that kids have seen, and it's not okay. And so we need to address that. Even in Lincoln, we need to address that. What they see, what they hear is real. So how does that affect them moving forward in school, in interactions with law enforcement? Lincoln has a robust community engagement. They do. I see it on social. When I was researching Lincoln, I'm like, wow, they are in the community all the time. And there's a reason why people are telling me the community loves Lincoln PD, is because of that. And I see that, and I understand that. And so I really applaud them for having that. So the strategy really is looking at what is going on, addressing it before it even starts in the schools. Our SROs are out there, they're in the schools, working with Department of Public Health, working with the school system, identifying those that might be going down the wrong path and addressing it, coming up with a plan, a mentorship plan, in which they can be diverted away from making those bad decisions. Now, I'll be really quick on this story, is that, in the Tenderloin, we started a mentorship program that was just getting on its feet. And we had this great officer that came up with this idea. Let's look at the totality of what's happening with one of the kids. So juvenile courts worked with him, probation worked with him, talked to teachers, interviewed coaches, talked to the family, talked to the siblings. They came up with a plan. But what we noticed was that what the families didn't have. Some of them didn't have enough furniture, beds. What we did was we signed them up for resources, for food stamps, things that they needed as a family. Because what obviously was happening was that young person was going out and finding what they needed. And that, unfortunately, was gangs. They were able to get what they needed from the gangs and not at home. And so having these programs is critical. And so that's my strategy. But ongoing crime that is occurring is high visibility. Take the money out of the pockets of the drug dealers or anyone trying to take advantage of others through robberies, burglaries, and stopping them through high visibility and having our officers out there in the community and being a large part of what happens day to day. I've been asked this question, I think about 6 times today. Effective efforts to address recruitment and retention of police officers. I apologize. I said it earlier, it's investment in the officers themselves. Our best recruiters are the officers. Let me see if this works. Hold on one second. Our best investment are our police officers. They're our best recruiters. They know exactly the type of person we need in the department. They understand the need for diversity in this department. I've had these conversations today. We understand that. And that is going to be a priority. But if we invest in our officers, then what happens? They are thriving. They're telling people that they're thriving. They're moving up through the chain. They're getting the training. They're being heard. They're being appreciated. We need to really invest in our police officers and our community. That's the relationship. There's a common thing right now that I'm saying. Investment in community, investment in our officers. It goes hand in hand. It's not one. It's not us versus them. It's both. And so when we move forward, I would say that the opportunities for these officers, even in this room, it has to be a priority for them to have anything that they need from training. And I asked them today, what training do you need? What is it that you view as a priority? And that's important, because listening, I'm going to come here and I'm going to listen to you. This is going to be very normal if I'm here, in which I'm going to come here. If you're upset, then you're going to tell me. It's going to be the same for them. They need to be heard. They need to be understood. We need to give them the resources that they need, plainly. And that will increase our recruitment. Sure, some young people want to go to a big city and be a police officer and run after people all day long. Okay, I've done that. It's not, I want to be part of a professional, today I was really impressed. The amount of work that they've already done to advance into 21st century policing, they're there. And they're continually moving forward. I want to be part of that police department. San Francisco is wonderful, and they've given me a lot. Don't misunderstand that. It is really about how we treat our people and whether or not they feel that they would tell their son, daughter, niece, nephew, brother to be in this police department. Them to be proud of this police department is the ideal. And that's recruitment. And that is retention as well. But I also think on the recruitment side, you have how many academic institutions here? A lot. We want those people. We want those people that are in psychology. We want those people that are in child development. We want those people that want to do something better in the community. What better place to do that than being a police officer and applying your knowledge? We need to recruit from those academic institutions. I prefer having people that know how to work as a team. Athletic programs. What athletic programs have we been going to? You know, it's really important. Understanding how to be on a team is critical to do this job. And you can ask anybody in this room that's wearing a uniform. If somebody does not know how to work together with others, it makes our job very difficult and dangerous. And so that would be my plan, ideally. I do know that they're doing some things that are really good. But for recruitment and retention, I really would get out there and get people to, like, tell this guy, you need to apply. You know, we have to go and find those people. We know who they are, who we think that would be a good fit. So thank you. Oh, I have questions.
All right, we'll switch this back and forth. Okay, we're going to see if we can get through the audio on the 3 questions. Okay, we're going to ask 3 questions that were not previewed for any of the candidates, and they are different questions each night in order to ensure that no one got to hear one ahead of time. Okay, so tonight's first question is, how should officers be trained and supervised in responding to mental health crises?
You know, this is my favorite question ever. So we deal with a lot of mental health issues in San Francisco. Crisis intervention training is critical for all law enforcement officers. I just went through my second round 2 weeks ago. I learned things that I didn't learn in the 1990s. Everything's always evolving. So training is critical for our officers. The other thing that we implemented was time and distance. And that means if I come up on a run and something is happening, I need to assess it, and then I need to decide whether or not I'm going to go in. If you know if the call is about a mental health case, then there's no urgency to necessarily go in immediately. So it really is about assessing that and then getting your resources that you need. I do believe there should be clinicians that are on the street 24/7. 24/7 is important because there are a lot of people that are in crisis at night. And I think that is a missing piece in law enforcement, is that part of it. Law enforcement, in my mind, should not be cut out of the response because it is dangerous. People that are having mental health issues, or in some cases, they're high, can be very dangerous. And I really would hate a clinician to go in there and get hurt. And that's my fear overall if we don't partner. So as far as the training goes, you know, a lot of times in law enforcement in the 1990s, it would be one time. So I got crisis intervention training one time in 1990s, and I didn't go until 2 weeks ago. What, is that right? Do you think I should be trained more often? Yeah, it's not one fix and done. It is continuous, as well as continuous conversations and exercising. You have to practice. You have to role play. These things are extremely important. And so that's how I would approach the mental health and response and training.
I'll just let you keep that. How about we'll try that. Okay, our second question is, how would you work to resolve the concerns of those who find police to be a source of fear rather than a source of safety or security?
If I was in front of that person, they said that to me, I'd ask them what happened, first and foremost. I then would have them join me at the department. Let me show you around. Let me show you what we do. Because there's so much misunderstanding about what we do day to day and how we approach things that it needs to be corrected. Learning is on both sides. And so you should know my use of force policy. You should see the training that we go through. In San Francisco, we have something, we call it the FATS machine. It's like a big video game. Do you guys have that? Most police departments have that right now, where you go into the scenario and you react to it and see what it's like. Because the thing that is difficult at times for law enforcement is when people Monday morning quarterback and are examining what happened but have little understanding about what led up to a situation. If there's fear, it is really about relationships. I'd want that person to start being involved more in the community meetings, in what we do as law enforcement, in our outreach to community, because that is important, and that will hopefully overcome. Sometimes just a conversation with somebody actually overcomes that fear. Now, what's happening nationally, that takes time. That takes time to really heal the mistrust that's built up. But it's also about being consistent and being there ultimately. If we don't show up, then we're breaking trust. If we don't come out and explain what happened in a situation, then we lose that opportunity to communicate with you. That breaks down trust. And so truly, I believe that it is about the face-to-face. I mean, I can talk to you on the phone and explain why you shouldn't be afraid, but that doesn't do it. You have to see me. You have to understand who I am. You have to understand who the officers are and how we're moving forward as a department. The training is critical because how we talk to people is critical. I will say, there are times that officers have bad days. I've had bad days. I've made my mistakes. I've learned from my mistakes. We as law enforcement need to understand if we make a mistake, there are times where you need to apologize and be a real person. Because what people see is a uniform and they're afraid of it for many different reasons. But if we're appearing more human, then that breaks that down a little bit. And we become more of your partner and guardian instead of what people fear.
Okay, last question. How do you envision showing support to your team on the police department while also listening to groups that express concerns about unequal treatment?
So the team in Lincoln, they will always have an ear to listening to what happens. Now, in situations where we have people that are saying, something occurred and it comes to my attention, then I'm going to go to them and I'm going to ask them. It is that simple. And if there's conflicting information, then we need to address it. Not push it under the rug, but address it. Everyone deserves an opportunity to do better. Police officers make mistakes. The public make mistakes. Everyone deserves to recover from that, right? I mean, if I make a mistake, should I have to pay a penalty where I'm going to have days off? It depends what it is, but if I need to be forthright and tell my boss. I need to have the freedom, but also the safety to be able to say, hey, you know what, I made a mistake today. I was really angry because of something other than work, and I opened my mouth. If you come forward and you just say that to your boss, and I mean, that is just being honest. And that's also who we should be. So it would be addressed to answer the question, and everybody needs to be heard, and it needs to be addressed, and I need to go back, or one of our supervisors needs to go back and explain to that person what occurred in us addressing it. Does that make sense? Okay. Was that the last question? That's the last question. I do want to say, thank you. I especially want to say thank you to the Lincoln Police Department. It was very eye-opening today, and your officers, assistant chiefs, chief, I'm very impressed. So thank you. And thank you guys for all being here, and I'm just going to hand this off.
All right, thank you. So I also want to thank Teresa for coming to Lincoln and participating in our police chief finalist process. That concludes the formal part of our presentation. I want to take a moment tonight to thank Sean Quinn and Trevor Walkland of our Parks and Rec department, who are facilitating each of our forums this week and making sure that the PA works and that there are chairs out, and so we're grateful for their assistance. Thanks so much. Now, if you want to help yourself, there are refreshments in the back. Again, there are comment cards. Teresa's going to stick around for another hour or so, and so you have an opportunity to ask her any question or engage in dialogue, and then you can provide feedback either on the written forms at the back of the room. I know some of you took them with you last night and brought them back tonight. Thank you. You can do that again. You can also just email the mayor at mayor@lincoln.ne.gov or call our office with your feedback, which is 402-441-7511. And with that, we hope to see you back here again tomorrow night, or you can always view these forums online. Each of these are being recorded and then posted on the city website. That'll be it for tonight. Thanks so much.